Warm welcome to one and all. Welcome to this discussion at the intersection between the world of marketing and media. This is where I engage with seasoned professionals about the work that they are doing and also the bearings, their work having a bearings on the immediate surroundings. So we have profiled and engaged in discussions with media professionals. Previously, I had a chat with Ayanda, award-winning photojournalist. Today's engagement and discussion has been one that's been long in the making. I've been in contact with Mads, who I will be in discussion with. He's a very interesting professional. He's Danish. He's a Danish documentary photographer and an open source software developer. And he has spent over 10 years documenting and capturing people of Cape Town. He was formerly stationed here um, in Cape Town, and his work around photography was about documenting sort of a social experience. And through his lens, he has explored transport network systems and people of Cape Town more specifically. And it was focused around conversation and the dynamics that exist. Um, the one thing that's been a key motivator for this interview is that Mads, as a developer, very involved in the world of tech, he has used or some of his expertise and his time to champion the continuous development of a very important platform, and this is South Africa History Online. South Africa History Online is a one of the primary sources of information about the origin stories of some of the political stalwarts and origin stories. As we know here in as we know that our history books here in South Africa still has not corrected the narrative around correctly defining and also profiling some of our important stories. So the SAHO platform, established by Omar Badsha in 2000, has been a platform that has been a source of information for academics, political science students, and school children doing their research. So it's well celebrated, but yet it's under documented. It's not really in the mainstream. So let us welcome Mads onto our conversation, and through this conversation, we'll be able to draw out some of his rich career highlights and some of the work that he is doing. Do give this. If you like this discussion, please do give it a like, share it with your network, and if you have to, please do subscribe to the channel. Warm welcome to
Yes,
you, Mads. I hope that you are well, and tell me how's things on your side and where you find
thank you
yourself,
so
your
much.
side of the world.
Well, I'm very well. I live in Denmark now. So after over a decade of living in amazing Cape Town and South Africa, I returned to Denmark, living here with my family now. My wife, who's South African from Gauteng province, and our daughter, who's Capetonian, as Capetonian as you are, Hasanain, Hasanain. That it's a place in the world that means everything to us. Believe even it is the greatest activity my wife finds as well is being active within the SAHO organization, and it's definitely at this point a family interest, history and archiving.
No,
But yes,
definitely.
doing very good on this day. Happy
Mm.
to have a little bit of overcast weather after a bit of a heat wave in Northern Europe, Western Europe.
I believe this time
Yeah.
of the year, while we're having this discussion, it's July here in Cape Town. I'm dressly warm here in my study. I've got my moe throw and I've got a warm beverage to get our conversation going.
Yes, I do believe I saw a blanket somewhere.
Yes, no, definitely. That's my moe throw. So, look, to kick
Yes,
off our discussion, I really thank you for your time. It's been a
thank
conversation
you.
that's been in the making for a while. My interest was really piqued that, look, our association that we've been connected online via social media,
Correct.
and I was really piqued around the way you capture your subjects and the level of detail in your photography. So I think that piqued my interest. And hopefully, when you do come to Cape Town and South Africa, we will have you to. I really love for you to take my headshots. It's something very important. As someone that's having these discussions and so on, I would love for you to capture that. But to kickstart our conversation, let's draw our attention to South Africa History Online. So if you have not come across SAHO, South Africa History Online, we will be sharing the link as well.
Yes, please
It's
do.
been yeah, it's been around for a while. It's been around since 2000, and Omar Badsha, prominent photographer. He has had many photo exhibitions and he's documented lots of photos and some of the backstories of South Africa's a very rich history around the quest for social justice during the
Correct.
time living under the state apartheid state and its legislation. It had a series of legislation, but one of those legislations was the Group Areas Act, and it actually shaped a lot of people's movement. People that lived in District 6, they were moved off
Correct.
to areas like Mitchell's Plain, Chatsworth, Phoenix in KwaZulu Natal, Lenasia, and Soweto. So, my first question to kickstart off our conversation is, how did you find out, how you stumble across Umar, the South Africa History Online project, and how did you come to contribute to this project? This portal, in my world, South African historians and students owe
Mhm.
Umar, Sayo, and all those that have been involved in this project a great gift of gratitude. So just fill us in there, Mads, of how you came about to find out about Sayo.
Well, that's a bit of an interesting story, to be quite honest. I was studying photography. I left Denmark being told that I was a bit too young to start the medicine study that I wanted to do, and I was told to go and see the world. And I returned a decade afterwards, so I don't know if that was what they meant, but that was what they got. And in the meantime, I decided to study something, and I decided to study photography. I had an interest in this medium, which was seen a little bit, arty, but I liked the capacity of it being able to freeze a moment, as arbitrary as that might be. So I started taking photographs in Cape Town, and I began a study. Once the study was done, the real world was starting to knock, and I was like living on the other side of the world, and wanted to actually stay there because I met people that I had never met before, more open, more interested in what is also outside of their own world. I can understand that people will see Danes as quite explorative and open to things, but I had never met people that were open and actively engaging with each other on that level. So I wanted to stay, and that required a job. And I remember being good at these websites. I'd always been into writing some bit of code, HTML and such, and MySpace was a driver back then. You wanted to have a cool MySpace account, so you needed to learn a bit of HTML. So I arrive at a meeting that had been set up by photographer and my first teacher, mentor, Jenny Altschuler. She was behind the Month of Photography in Cape Town and many fairly large photography events around Cape Town. So she had actually set up a job meeting with Omar. And what I basically sorry about that, but what basically happens is that I arrive at Omar's house, and I believe that I'm about to have an interview about a photographic assignment. And I'd heard whispers of this festival called Bonani Africa, and I thought I was going to be on my first photographic assignment and so forth. But during this meeting, I realized that Omar had heard that I was good at websites. So he was actually sitting there with a whole other idea, and that was to hire me to work on the huge website that was SAHO at this point, written in just HTML and CSS.
So what year was this, Mads?
We're talking 2009.
Wow.
And ahead of the World Cup, Omar thought we need a photographic festival that highlights the current state of South Africa, the Bonani Africa, and it was the second edition of the festival. So that was actually how Omar hijacked me a little bit into his organization by saying, "You'll start on Monday," and then I started on Monday, and here I am, sort of, several years after, and still engaged in the organization. But it was an interesting day. I do remember arriving at the house, and there was an argument amongst seasoned industry people, and it was about photography, and it was about the essence of what this festival should be. And let's just say that cups were flying a little bit around the room. I will say nothing else, but there was a point of discussion about how this exhibition should look. And that was when I arrived. And let's just say two artists, they can get a conversation going. So yeah, that was how that started. I thought I was going to go and take photographs, and I was hired to develop websites and maintain systems.
I think you joined the project at a very key juncture, 2008, and we all know that a HTML website, it's like these, folks, for those that are not au fait with content management, HTML websites was perhaps one of the first iterations of the web when it was proliferated, maybe from 1998 onwards until the 2000s, where websites were constructed with HTML. It was sort of like an informational brochure. It was perhaps very cumbersome. It would eventually become very cumbersome to edit because it's not running off a framework, So I think, Mads, you joined the discussion at a very important juncture. So I think, So I think from that, I think your task was to move the website from a HTML to a framework.
That is 100% correct. And that was there was a lot of learning, but it was also, this thing of I can't sit still and not do anything, but more importantly, I need to learn something. So I fit right in there, and I had Jonas, Gianni, and Tinashi Gunda. Uh, Last name Gunda is from Zimbabwe. Jonas was from Gauteng, from Pretoria. So it was already this mixture of unlikely history heroes, and I learned so much from them. And
Mm.
like you were saying already, at this point, it's a crucial point because we had to jump to something that was maintainable. We had to use something that would secure SAHO as a digital like where our main product is a website, is a web app. So we needed to secure this thing and say, okay, we don't want to think about this before 50 years from now. I don't know. The thought is there that we will choose something like Drupal. WordPress was also up. Joomla was up. There were other choices, but Drupal was the one. And a good choice at that, if you look at 16 years after from when we were on Drupal 6. So, yeah.
So tell me, I believe that SAHO at a certain time was based in a Lower Main Road, Salt River, and
Correct.
just sketch for us that look, this is a serious, formidable project. This is not something where there's just archival material that has been rewritten or scanned in. Um, I think I have been personally at the Salt River headquarters, and I believe that from the cross section of teams, some of these were researchers, academics, and people that were able to further research and properly document some of this history. Just sketch from your interactions, some of the cross section and the cross disciplines
Yes.
of professionals that was involved in Umar's team.
Yeah. I mean, Umar has been this catalyst also for people. You get people in with a certain interest, and they are allowed to sort of bloom with it, and they give an enormous responsibility to make sure that it moves. Yes, I knew a lot about exhibitions and such, but I became responsible for making sure that we had a book published, that we had an exhibition running with thousands of people attending. It all worked out because of trust and masterful assistance. But SAHO as an NPO is based on one line, as I see it, and that's a people's history project. The fact that a majority was allowed to do what they did, but then also continuously write the history the way that they dictated seemed unjust to me. And there was some sort of a meter in me that's like, okay, that's too much unjust. I can't be part of this. So the rewriting perspective, while you could say that it is a little bit to be discussed, and do we rewrite history? Yes, of course we rewrite history. Of course, when we know more, we expand our understanding and shared understanding of a subject. So that is the core point of SAHO, and I could always stand by that. So it is at this point an archive that holds more than 50,000 documents, and we range from having 3 million to 6 million visitors per year. So I would say the safe phrasing is millions of visits per year, but it's the visit purpose that actually really matter here. It's the people that we really want to get in touch with, because we don't want to necessarily try and convince Urma and Urpa in Northwest province that they were idle in atrocities. But we would really, of course, love for them to read the history, but who we're really interested in is the average child that's going through school, that they can go in and they can find concrete evidence of what happened, referenced evidence of the reality that was.
So there we go.
So,
So as you're speaking there, sorry for cutting your word,
yeah,
we're
no
just
problem.
scrolling through the website. So, this is one of the library sections, History of Women's Struggle in South Africa. There's a cross section of civil society structures, but one of these has been the Black Sash and others. So, as a source of information, this is a very valuable source of information, especially for school going learners. They will probably use the site as a means to find information around uh, perhaps themes that not necessarily documented
Correct.
in our current history. Here we're talking about Black consciousness
Absolutely.
movements and a formidable timeline from 1903 to 2009. So the who's of
You
the,
will see the classroom as well.
yes, correct.
It represents the curriculum, and it has teaching materials, everything that you would need to drive a conversation in a classroom around a topic.
There we go. Heritage Trail through provinces of South Africa.
Yes. And if I can also entertain you with the story about the last page you were on, I took that from HTML and I remember re-uploading it to Drupal because the pages were too complex to just do a query and move it over. There was too much going on, too many images and so forth. But you can actually go in and find teaching material in here, and you can use the website also in your education. They are also on the front page. You will see the teacher materials. They are aids and resources. So if you scroll down a little bit further to the bottom, you will see that there are these incredible resources for also learning about your local spaces, but educational resources, the CAPS documents. We have all of the life orientation and history subjects. So there's actually a bunch of materials that show or indicate where SAHO would like to position ourselves. And that is directly as an active part of like education within social studies, history, yeah, English.
So this is an important discussion, Mads, here in South Africa for the past few months. There's been discussion around um, revising or having the history a little bit more inclusive. So the point that we are driving across around our discussion is that lots of the history um, gave very prominent prominence to Cecil John Rhodes. I think they brought Rhodes infrastructure here to Africa. We can't take that away from the British Empire. We
Mm-hmm.
can't take that away from the Dutch East India Company in terms of what they set up over here in the Cape Town. But with Jan van Riebeeck, the Dutch East India Company, when they also came here in 1652 and beyond, they also came to set up economic enterprises, and lots of this was based on slavery. So here in
Mm-hmm.
Cape Town, you have the Iziko Slave Lodge. This is where lots of the economic slaves from Zanzibar, from the Indonesian archipelago, from Africa, from Mozambique, you name it, they were held there and they were sold as commodities. So, as much as lots of infrastructure was built,
Mm-hmm.
there was foremost the colonial powers usurped the resources, and also, at the turn of the century, lots of the inhabitants of South Africa. Um, the land was usurped and the rights was taken away in order for them to vote, own land, and taxes were imposed, whether it was
Mhm.
the land poll tax, and the list just goes on. And this is even before the height
That's
of this
before the height of it.
yeah, and also then we had, after the British Empire, this is where the nationalist government came in, and they had separate development legislation. Yeah, we talk about the Group Areas Act, where land was taken away and people were moved. And I think this usurping of their land and displacement of people, where people formerly lived in Fitas in Johannesburg, or Cato Manor, or District 6, they were moved out of their comfortable homes in Constantia, Hartleyvale,
Hmm.
Claremont, and they were moved to um, these suburbs, that were set up in Mitchell's Plain. And
Mitchell's
this year,
Plain, yeah.
we're celebrating 50 years of Mitchell's Plain, Chatsworth, Soweto, of this very big experiment, or a very big plan for the government of the day to move people away from, keep them away from the CBD, right? And we will touch on that. So just on to the next question here, as we segue to the next
Mhm.
question. So SAHO is a primary source of archival material related to South Africa's history, from the indigenous history to the political history that's not taught in conventional schools today. So just tell us a little bit more of your work process, how you supported the project from 2009, 2010, in terms of setting up a proper structure that makes it easy today for people that are political science student and research in the history, as well as in the classroom. How is that structure and kind of setting up some sort of a framework? How does it help the project today in
Yeah.
2026?
Like the interesting thing to look at here is the way you frame uh, a person's role within an organization like SAHO, in terms of rewrite. You mentioned rewrite. You mentioned the various topics within this rewriting of history, because these are the things that people want to deal with. They want to know why they live where they live. They have questions. I think as soon as people stop having questions and stop wondering about why they are where they are, then I think something is a little bit of a miss. People will say that you can hang a little bit too much onto the past. I think people don't hang on enough to the past. I think there's so much that we can do with revision. In IT, we revision versions of software all the time. That's not a problem. If somebody's made a mistake, we solve it, call it a bug, and move on. I am not going to say that Rhodes and an entire people of English and then Dutch were, a bug. I'm not going to start calling people problems like that, but they certainly caused an array of kick-on effects, like on every single aspect of human life in the Cape and across Southern Africa. Screw the roads. I'm sorry, but like, let's screw the roads, screw the electricity, and let's start looking at how people's lives were dictated. That is where control and human sort of engineering and ideologies just converge into something that is not very, very pretty. If you look at South Africa today, and if you look at Cape Town today, Cape Town is a great example of a place where people of various religions live together in what I would consider deep respect for each other and each other's beliefs and religions. I actually think that Cape Town and South Africa, besides some of the race tension that is undeniable and a leftover from apartheid, I think that besides that, there is an acceptance of each other. And that's difficult to talk about in these days of xenophobia, but there is a base understanding and respect of each other that you don't find elsewhere in the world. And I think that that's worth sticking to. But imagine being uprooted, imagine being moved. For me, it was like, I've extended my ability to learn about this history without doing something. So I couldn't help myself but go through the website, go through the internet, and suck all of the information down to my PC so that I could upload it. Like, I remember the first time. I hope there are no people from the DICE archive in case it didn't. But like, I swallowed 20,000 archive items from the archive, which was left very, very open. And I categorized it with my colleague Kyle. And, we molded this data into something that was useful, something that was linked to other articles, forced removals, this and that riot. It started seeing all of these articles about riots. Oh, what is this riot? Why are they calling it a riot when it's people that are just like standing up in their communities and saying, we don't want you guys to tell us what to do. So I just found all of this material and these articles written by researchers at SAHO, and I started pulling them together into these mega features where, for example, you will see on the SAHO website now the history of apartheid is actually a whole set of articles and archive items, images, biographies, places. And it's linked into the archive items so that it's not just our words saying, cool, unjust, people moved, let's write a different history. No, it's linked into actual archival material. And that's the difference. It's not just a dead archive. You can write to us similarly to Wikipedia, but we'll probably not answer before in 3 years because we've gotten so many contributions that we are still trying to get to. Yeah, it's a big project, and there's a sense of us being under-resourced with a huge potential. So that's what we're trying to really do. Omar, Ravi, the team behind SAHO, the editors as well, would be to try and get a future where we can operate as a network organization. I'm here, Phoenix is around here somewhere, and our editors in South Africa. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing from you is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that to some degree you had some orientation around the origin story of South Africa's history, but as you started to ingest, I like to use that word, ingest or process some of this archival information, you just got deeper and deeper into this. So you got deeply orientated around the atrocities of the, of the colonial project.
Yep. Like that, I realized this. Like, I knew a lot about apartheid, but it was also very restricted in some sense, and I wanted to know more. And you realize that it's this machine for deciding where people are allowed to be based on race, and then, like you said, Group Areas Act, District 6, boom, boom, so forth. And you also start seeing some parallels. Denmark had they basically have this little title holder. They are the title holder of being the greatest slave nation per capita. You start seeing, things that happened in Greenland. We've had our own sort of, what can you say, opportunities to deal with who we are in a modern world, where you can say AfriForum, they also have an opportunity to actually operate in a modern Africa and a modern South Africa, but they choose to just be ignorant Afrikaners. Sorry to be very political on this, but there is an opportunity at every point to open yourself up to a new perception of the world. And I believe that that point is better now than tomorrow. Yeah.
So I'd like to draw our attention to the world of tech. I think the very big focus of this discussion today, Mads, is about the role that tech plays around this formidable project and managing a framework around content. All right, that is of
Yep.
some use for the greater good. And you referred to that SAHO, your capacity is in the capacity of a volunteer. So my next question is, how do you use tech in your work? What are some of the social pitfalls associated with technology that we find sometimes technology is not, it's made to for a some sort of a profit motivation? And what are some of the social pitfalls associated with technology, and how do you find the balance between using technology ethically and using that tools that are not perpetuating social ills? And from having a look at your body of work, that you also um, use open source software, and you also contribute to supporting and uplifting the community. Here referred to your contribution to the GitHub open source community.
Correct. I again have to thank SAHO. One of the reasons why I do work pro bono for SAHO is that I can give back, as Omar would have phrased it when I stayed in Cape Town, talking about this northerner. Now this northerner is coming in here and tuning me something. I don't want to be the northerner that that came and then left with the database of South African history online. I want to give back, because it was at SAHO that I learned about software development and learned about open source. And those are just about the most value-giving things that I've learned in my life. I must say that it gives my life some purpose. So I mean, for SAHO, technology is not a support function. It's a delivery mechanism for the mission, and that mission is a people's history. It has to be available. It has to be online all the time. After a good few years of being disconnected, 2 years, I was a bit disconnected and very focused on my IT tech career, working as a tech lead for multiple companies, and really, sorry, hate to use the frame, but I was very busy, and I was very busy in a sense where it didn't fit in taking on more work. And our website was struggling. It was not running, and I could see that it wasn't not real traffic that we were getting in. It was stalling and not loading the way that it's supposed to. And that's about 2 years ago that I picked it up again, and I was like, look here, I'm going to make this the stellar foremost project in South Africa. And I bid it welcome that somebody finds a more modern, more well-maintained, more well-run pipeline that is publicly available in the entire country. I say there's a challenge for anyone listening or potentially watching this to find something that is publicly available and more modern and available. That might not mean so much, but the value for an organization like SAHO, it's immense, because this is the flagship. The website is the most important. Our social network platforms, they're growing and doing really well, but the ratio of traffic is wildly different. We are doing some real modern strides on social network platforms, and our content is just looking great. But I think that's for another episode. But in terms of SAHO, we run on Drupal, so it's maintained by a big community that I'm also part of, and I can maintain it by running a few commands and have the new software out running a few minutes after. It is fully modern. I dare stress that. So what tech actually has to do? Well, there's preservation. So keeping 25 years of material, keeping it safe and intact. We have to be discoverable. So we have to be available SEO wise and for chatbots. We have to be available on all modern platforms. So all the AI platforms, we are referenced. If you ask for South African history, we're in there. I would also like to add that over the course of like a 3-month period, we get 90 million impressions on Google. 90 million impressions. That's
from South Africa or across the world?
That's across the world. That's across the world. On a good day, on Thursday, June 11th, around Youth Day, we're talking 1.7 million impressions on Google. That's only on Google. You must remember, Google is not necessarily they are the top dog, but they're not necessarily the top dog like they used to be. People use other platforms to get their information now.
Especially international traffic.
Especially international traffic. This doesn't count direct or other types of sources. But that's in one day. SAHO is not a small resource in any way. It is a huge, well-visited website.
So Mads, on that point, while we're talking about, the primary source is, it's archival information and text and long form. Are there any challenges in terms of help that's needed, because we are living in a era of rich media content, right? Is there a call or some sort of a means that you need to kind of grow some of that rich media video archival material and the audio podcasting? Any challenges or a call that you need out there for some support? Where is the project placed around that source of that means of content consumption?
No, that's a good question. That is most certainly important for us, and it has always been a point of matter for Omar to say, how are we using the correct modern tools to share our content? How do we take this great content and make it available and easily approached? The the best answer to that is the work that Phoenix, my wife, is doing at current with the design team, and that is making far more dynamic, short format, informative videos, and it's just working very well. People also respond very, very well to images, particularly cultural, arts, images, sports. What we of course try and do is, in periods, we have to be very, very informative leading to what was the one nickname somebody gave us? South African apartheid, some South African apartheid history online. It was a funny comment. And yes, sure, okay, we can get carried away because we're passionate. That's the whole driver for why we're here, is that we're passionate about injustice and how we can move forward, because we have a 9-generation, I call it immobility, social immobility. It's a 9-generation social immobility reality in South Africa. In Denmark, it's 1 generation. That means that my daughter can choose to go and be an astrophysicist. Her dad was a software developer. My dad was a farmer's boy that became an engineer. You see how it happens. That's 1 generation. We want to get South Africa away from 9 generations of social immobility. That starts with education and information, that there is a path that is me standing up for my rights, the rights of the next person, that we embrace Ubuntu and we say that I am because of this person. Then we can give back and we can start talking about what's good for the future, right?
It's a good point that you raised, and the point that, Mads, I'd like to reiterate that South Africa has, because of its disparities between the rich and the poor, and lots of these has been entrenched over time through the colonial project, and especially during the apartheid. So some of these social ills can be readdressed through education. Education is a mean, and for some of our Gen Zs and our youth, it's a case of identity and
It
also
is.
retracing, the origin stories. So, you have a starting point and you're able to redress some of these. I would like to shift our discussion to, and here's another focus in your work and your craft, and this is photography. So behind the lens, you've been able to capture social science in motion, and your fascination with transport networks as a mode of commute, where people are moving from the place of work in the CBD, and for some commuting up to 20 or 40 kilometers back home. People living in Kailicha, in Mitchell's Plain. So tell us a little bit more about your fascination with social science, with capturing this in motion. Yeah, so just fill us in
Yeah,
as
sure.
we move towards your work in photography.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was again a new world, fascinating world, being on modes of transport in South Africa and in Cape Town. Been on buses before, been on trains, airplanes, but there was this strange difference that people spoke to each other. There was a sense of community on the bus, a sense of a moment to just sort of also breathe and just be you. But people actually interacted with each other, and that was, to me, different. It was new. That meant that there must be a story to tell here. There were people that are meeting. I can get to hear about where they come from in Cape Town, what's going on in their life on a level that I had never experienced before. And it's interesting because I really did get that sense that a lot of people in Cape Town wanted to tell a story, like something within them gave. They wanted to give a view into their life. They wanted to tell me these stories, and I just thought it was fascinating. I thought it was fascinating that before most of Cape Town woke up, central Cape Town and some of the suburbs woke up, yeah, but life had already begun. People were already selling peanuts, chips, your knickknacks. You had this whole commute urgency. If you needed to be in Cape Town by the time that a shop opens or to do your job, you had to leave your house at 6 o'clock, 5:30, I don't know, and all due to this spatial segregation. And then it became sort of like, how can I sort of play with this, and of course try and do some visually intriguing pictures where you have all of this Cape Town, you have the mountains, and you have all of this that most people see, but underneath you, it only works because you have all of this commute of workers that carry out their daily deed. So yeah, it became sort of about this infrastructure, because then it sort of led me into taking the taxis and taking the buses and trains into other parts of Cape Town and experience sort of these areas. I would go to the affluent areas of Bishop's Court and see these lush gardens that were then kept by the commuters, the same commuters that I would meet on the bus stops. And in the end, I also ended up on buses to Mitchell's Plain and Lavender Hill and all sorts of places, and I met people that wanted to tell me these stories, and that was just absolutely fantastic. Yeah, there you see a picture from Bishop's Court, the maid walking the dog, and you have these high walled, fenced in buildings that I'd never seen. So to me, it was deeply expanding. Like here we have the tin shacks of Blekisdorp, right? I'd never seen anything like this. Do you know how hot it is in one of these tin shacks? I know, because I stood in one next to a person that had TB. So it's sort of like these experiences where my understanding of the world would just expand, and it was mainly due to people wanting to share their stories. Take the photograph, get my story out there. And of course, I had a main catalyst in working for Omar, and I started realizing that this way of using the camera to document and see the world, that it had to do with a certain way of looking at people and the environment. The way that we capture people in the environment is very important. There's a certain need for respect and understanding of the space and the people there.
The one thing that definitely stands out, that you spent lots of time at the station deck, it's really fascinating how you've captured these photos of movement where you're at the Golden Arrow bus terminus in the Cape Town CBD, and it's quite late at night and people are waiting and they are dependent on that mode of transport because they live up to 30 kilometers away. And also some of your photos
Exactly.
that captures the life and the lived experience, and for some it's on the outskirts of the CBD. And some photos where you're actually going into the belly of the beast, where it's Blikkiesdorp, whether it's Mitchell's Plain. What was that experience like, capturing that in film? And yeah, give us a sense of that. You're actually following people on their commute to Mitchell's Plain. I believe you lived in Mitchell's Plain at a certain time.
I had a girlfriend in Mitchell's Plain, so I spent a lot of time in Mitchell's Plain, and that was going to going to the mall and fairly everyday life, I would say. But I also did a lot of NGO work, in particularly Mitchell's Plain. So yeah.
So I
But it
think
was family
mm,
gatherings, going
mm,
for nice roti and curry, family gatherings, and just
mm.
meeting nice people. Really, I think you ask about the belly of the beast. It almost sounds a little bit like I'm in the Dukum. I don't know if you know about
I know that.
the band I photographed with
Yes,
Isaac Newton, but
yes.
this whole thing of it being this it look, I can't talk down the experience and the stories that is losing someone to gang violence, or the other things that do happen on a daily basis in the Cave Flats. But majority of my experience has been with people that were super, super nice. Hey, how are you doing? Do you want a cup of tea? Yeah, sure, I would like a cup of tea. Okay, cool. And then you are sitting there in somebody's lounge and you are having a chat about their day-to-day life. And you can't make that up. You can walk around Denmark. You can walk Denmark thin without being invited in for a cup of tea. So what was the experience? It was great. I met so many genuinely nice people.
So I think you touch on a very important point that when you come to Africa, when you come to Southern Africa, the dynamic is different. That when you go to, maybe this is the converse to the belly of the beast.
Mm-hmm.
Belly of the beast.
True.
We're just talking about maybe some of these social challenges within these enclaves. That when you go to Blikkiesdorp, you will receive spontaneously very good hospitality. But maybe
You
when you
will.
are in Europe, it's a different scenario. It's on a needs to know basis, and you need to have an appointment in order to come in to have a cup of tea. Am I correct in that statement, Mads?
You're 100% correct. You're 100% correct. And there's been an incredible slip in between generations in Denmark, where people like me, we are very bad at actually keeping in contact with family, even friends. But so obviously many people are good at it, but it does become very silo, my space, so forth. And I also had a lot to learn when I moved to Cape Town about personal space. Let's just say that. I I learned a lot from that. And yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
I
I
I do
think
miss that.
yes. So I think from South Africa, you know, maybe in the formative years, the early years, this collectivist living within the village and sharing
True.
resources that epitomize Ubuntu. I think that you will still find that, but because of globalization and modern times, modernity that it is slipping in, that we
Yeah.
are aspiring towards a more European kind of a construct around individualism.
Hmm.
So I think, yeah, so I think this is some of the realities of the modern age.
True.
Tell me
True.
about your use of AI in your workflow. How do you use AI to kind of forward track or shorten work steps and automate certain workflows? And we what's your take on AI in terms of its effect on the job market and society?
I believe that if you're using AI in any parts of your workflow professionally, then you're probably still an early adopter. I believe that people that actually use it in a really productive way, and have managed to find proper ways of working with it, they are still early adopters. Because there's a huge gray area where people are sort of like still using it just to do advanced search, where the levels, the tiers, the iceberg
Yes.
my wife always tells me about these iceberg videos on YouTube where it gets more and more, there's more of the iceberg under the surface, right?
Okay.
But think about it in terms of how you can get the most out of the tool. So that is where I think that it diverges a lot on how people use it. So say, for example, you want to know how many people live in Cape Town. Cool. I'm going to ask the AI. Hi, AI, how many people live in Cape Town? That's tier one. That's base level using AI. The next, cool. Is there an official open endpoint somewhere within government that has an annual or monthly or daily statistic of how many people are born and die and live in Cape Town registered and so forth? Probably difficult to find, but just consider it the second tier of information. You're now way above just asking it to pull a number from a few different sources and give you an average as an advanced search would do. Think second tier is then linking up to this direct source. Third tier would be building a code around it that fetches the actual number, puts it into race, gender, what they work with, nationality. You catch the drift is you become a superhero when you know how to use the tools in the correct way. So I know how to develop software. I know how to do Drupal, and I know how to get it onto a server. I know how to do a server. That means that in the entire pipeline from me writing something that I would like to have on the internet, I know how to do it every step of the way. Within every field that AI applies to, if you are an expert and you know every step of the way, you have the potential to do the times 10. You have the potential to work smarter and faster. But more importantly, you can get some of these projects out that you've had on the back burner for a very long time. So that would be, for example, migrations. I can outsource the base work for any migration of any content, and I will have to do very, very little myself. But that is only because I can supervise and plan correctly. So yes, I use a lot of AI. I use it a lot. I'm constantly building new things.
Okay, it's good to know that you've used AI as part of your workflow to automate like redundant tasks or tasks that would have been very time consuming, and that
Oh
somehow
yes,
has affected your work positively, as well as the SAO SAO project. So tell us a little
it
bit
has
more about
definitely.
your day to day. Your main focus is about perhaps using Drupal as a framework, but
Mhm.
as a full stack developer, just tell us around some of the enterprise level frameworks that you are producing
Mhm.
for municipalities and to solve a modern day
Yes.
business challenge.
Well, I work as a consultant for a company based in Copenhagen named Exponent, and Exponent, they are a supplier of IT, which in basically everything from sys administration over into application development. And we work with the Copenhagen municipality and other municipalities. And I use Drupal to develop these platforms. Some of them are workflow driven, and they interact with public services. So one thing that is also a discussion in South Africa currently is digital ID. And I wish you guys good luck with that one, because we have paranoid people here. I'm not necessarily paranoid, but South Africans, they will not be happy with this digital ID. That is another pass. It's another thing that they don't need. It's a thing that I can't see why I need this so that you can know where I am, type of a thing, right? It's going to be a fun discussion. I don't know where it's going to land, but you will get a digital ID because that is how the world operates right now. It operates with going towards a digital world where you can do all your applications and everything without having to stand in a line at Home Affairs. And the same person will say, I don't want a digital ID. It's the same person complaining about standing in line at Home Affairs. So in the end, the question is, what does this person want? Well, they don't want anything. They don't want to be part of society. They don't probably want to. You get it. All I'm saying is, within years, South Africans will need a digital ID so that you can do modern digital workflows. And those are the sort of workflows that I develop. And I would love for South Africa to not fall into a Gupta trap and sell their butts off to India for a bunch of Windows licenses and a couple of Centrino computers that will never ever run a browser. All I'm saying is, I would love for there to be a little bit more perspective on and open source within the future digitization of South Africa, rather than it being some sort of hostile takeover by proprietary software with vendors.
There we go. Point taken. So look,
I hope.
Yeah. So lots of these initiatives by the government has been very well received in principle.
Have they? Yes, in principle.
In principle, but the rollout of the digitization, and the reality is we're still in the cave era. So if you go to Kailicha, go to certain pockets that needs high speed internet to proliferate or to aid education, the infrastructure is very poor, and in short, the government has not fulfilled its mandate to make or digitize certain centers across the board. I see the digital divide is still exists, and I think with also the digital ID, as much as there's distrust because of traditionally the state apparatus or the government surveilling you, I think within time, because there's a very big international agenda around there, this will eventually take on. But I definitely take your point. I want to move on to the next point, that you also have been involved in writing of some sort, and you have been writing, documenting some of your focus project around open source, Drupal, and the hosting. So just fill us in terms of some of your technical writing, and also as part of your broader role to contribute towards the open source community. And here you also advocate on the use of Ubuntu and some of these open source frameworks.
Yeah, I I think it's sort of it's evident that there is a divide, and it's evident that in South Africa there's an incentive towards there has to be an incentive towards going towards open source software. And I say this because as you digitize, you make choices. The people that are sitting in certain offices are getting certain deals. Hey, you need a mega computer. Hey, you need municipal authentication systems. You need to run this on the cloud. As soon as you say yes to any of those five, you have already pushed, the proverbial tiny ship down the river. And what will happen down the river is 25% license cost increases, constant updates. Your product can't do this, but we have this other product that you can buy. You will basically be paying anything that you're not paying right now, you will be paying down the road. So what I'm just hoping is that South African municipalities, regions, and central governments is actually not selling each and every single project down the same stream. And that would be using Microsoft technology and software all the way. If South Africa decided, cool, we're just going to use open source tech, not only will be the production be in country and the real benefit be in country and not going to American tech software houses, but it will be correct ownership. So that means that this whole surveillance feeling is far less. It is dealing with the POPIA Act, saying, where should our data be? Should it be in American data houses? No, I don't think so. So it's a full-on discussion that I think requires a bit more nuance and a lot more focus on doing the right thing. I just think that what we saw with Gupta, a lot of people, that's a lot of money. Yes, it's a lot of money. Yes, it's a lot of money to digitize an entire country, but it's a lot more money if you are in the pocket of Microsoft and AWS and Google.
I think you raise a very important point there that, look, the new neo-colonialism that is happening and the globalization is around, the AWS, the Amazons, the Metas of the world, the Googles of the world, that, they have in their own competition and duel, and ultimately it is hegemony over the space. So, there's nothing that is free. Everything comes with a price tag and terms and conditions, but herein lies the opportunity around the open source community, of which you are a advocate. Yes, and then you refer to,
Absolutely.
you have some of these international people coming in, and here you refer to the Guptas, that come here, but they come under false pretexts, but ultimately it is to usurp and to gain control over a set kind of a territory or a region. So yes,
Exactly.
we had a very rich conversation with Mads at the intersection between the world of tech photography and also being instrumental and key around one of South Africa's most celebrated or most thought through or most long-standing, long-running online archive. It's available online. We will share the address. Here's the address. If you haven't heard about History Online, it's very celebrated. Often I do public talks and Yeah, I reflect on my work at OCAF, the National OCAF Foundation, who has produced a series of books up to 40 titles, and it's around the Leaders and Legacy series of OCAF. Here we speak of Shafiq Morton's Circle of the Saints that talks about the stories of the Indonesian political exiles that were sent here by the Dutch East India Company as they stage a fierce resistance. And oftentimes we find that whether it's Abu Bakr Effendi, whether it's Bantu Biko, Black Conscious, the Black Sash, lots of the civil society structures and lots of the history stalwarts are listed on this website. So, Mads, I think this calls for subsequent engagement. And I think one of the days we would love for you to facilitate, to have Umar also on there, where we have a discussion around identity, history, and also maybe a common thread around documenting the social experience through photography. And I really love for you to facilitate properly, to have a proper tech setup for Omar. So we wish you well, to you, Phoenix, and your family,
Appreciate it. And
in
to you too.
Denmark. May you continue to pioneer from the tech side this project, and this discussion was a means also to validate your efforts and your work. Sometimes this goes unnoticed. It's not really the credit that we want to bestow on you, but we also want to profile this important project. And um, the concluding point that I can't overemphasize, that there's lots of resources and lots of support that SAHO needs in order to carry on for another 20 years. And please do become a lifetime donor supporter. You can do a lump sum donation. There is a donation feature on the website.
Correct.
Lots of these projects are zero rated. There's no ads, payment walls whatsoever. But please, if there is a means, kindly do donate. Any concluding remarks from your side, Matt, before we conclude?
Thank you for inviting me, and any chance to get to talk about my favorite things, tech, online archives, and open source.
Yes, no, fantastic. I'll definitely invite you on. I also do have a Substack platform where we have the writing community, and yeah, we also like to have a very interesting discussion where we add value to the writing community. So I think I'll definitely invite you on there. And some of this we can't do justice to this in one session, but subsequent engagements. So that's where I sign off. We thank you for joining us. We'll have another discussion again in the at the intersection where media and marketing does reach itself. Until the next time, thank you so much. Bye.
Bye bye.